time, you haven't been here before, stand up. If you're superintendent, teacher, principal, whatever. I know I see. Come on, I know I see some that have never been here before. Anybody? All right. Will, where's your group? Tell that group that's the Georgia School Board, all the principals, superintendents. Where are my superintendents? All right, Will, and who area are you? Have 3, 4 superintendents here. What school system are you from?
Rockdale.
Rockdale. Very good. We're glad to have y'all. Now, the most important, do we have any, where are my teachers? Any teachers here? Stand up. Let me have a teachers. Stand up if you would. Our teachers? Any teachers? They're back where they should be, teaching children in the schools. We appreciate that. All right. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and get started because we got to be out of this room by 5 till 3. So you know the schedule. We're on a tight schedule. So, Fran, you want to say anything before we start? All right. Gosh, Fran. All right. So at this time, we have a special presentation. I've seen excerpts of this and talked with them earlier, and I think this is something Fran and I've talked about that we felt like the committee really need to be aware of. And we'll have more of the committee members coming in a few minutes, I'm sure. But I would like to, the Georgia School Board Association, Sis, Henry, where are you? Are you going to be introducing it? Who's going to be introducing it? And the Superintendent's Association, Herb. So if you two will come forward, now you may use the table or you may use the podium, whatever you prefer. All right?
It's better, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and members of the committees, we appreciate the time to be with you. Those of us who are around here all the time, you're used to hearing from us, and so we're not going to spend any time up here to do that. We're going to introduce people who actually do the work with young folks every day, which is the most important thing we do. However, you also know that many of you have been around here as long or longer than I have, and you've heard us for 11 or 12 years, and sometimes we get accused of saying, of being only too ready to say what we're opposed to, but sometimes we don't always know what we're for. Well, this is our day to tell you what we're for. A couple of years ago, an idea started with us and was eagerly joined in by the Georgia School Boards Association. We thought it was time that somebody with a true interest in children set a vision for the future of public education in Georgia. And our two associations took on that task, the Superintendents Association and the School Boards Association. Why us? Well, the school boards are the ones that you folks know are constitutionally mandated to control, operate and control the local school districts. And my members are the direct employees of those local school boards. So over a 2-year period of time now, we've spent thousands of man-hours of time putting together what we think is a coherent, common sense vision for the future of public education in Georgia, and we're going to have folks who participated in that effort to tell you about it.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Sis Henry, and I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia School No, I'm not. Georgia School Boards Association.
Forgot to tell you.
And
Make a mistake.
I know that. And
we know where you're going
sir.
next year. Yes, we do.
Thank you, sir. I would, if I might, we have a number of school board members that are also with us today, and we've recognized teachers and we've recognized school superintendents. And if we could I ask my members to please stand?
Well, you know, I'd hope they'd stood up. All the school board members stand up. I'm sorry. I thought all right.
Great.
Tell us where you're from. I want to hear.
Rockdale.
Ford County. Dawson County.
Paris. City Schools of Decatur.
Lowndes.
Very good. All right. We'll give you a applause. Yeah.
And I do hope I still have a job when this is over. Let me just say that I have been in education now for 40 years, and the Vision Project of what you're about to just hear in just a moment is the most exciting thing that I have been involved in. And it truly is a collaborative approach. School board members were involved and school superintendents were involved, but so were higher ed officials. And you'll also notice that in this room you have a number of people who work for the colleges of education all over the state of Georgia. We've been very careful in our recommendations to make sure that they are research-based. We have collaborated with McCrell Lab, and we believe that the recommendations that we are bringing forth in the state of Georgia, if in fact they are implemented and adopted, can make a huge change for the state. Mr. Garrett did allude to the fact that we have spent hours and hours on this, but actually we spent about 15,000 man-hours between the people that were involved. It has taken approximately 2 years to come up with the recommendations. Both boards of directors approved these recommendations in early December. So we're now in the dissemination phase, and we appreciate the fact that you've asked us to come before you and to make this presentation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I don't usually correct Sis Henry, but she said 15,000 man-hours into this project. I've been part of that, and it's more like 11,000 woman-hours and 4,000 men-hours because I've been at those meetings and I know who's done the yeoman's work. I am, for this particular brief period of time, the superintendent of the Hall County School District. However, I don't normally introduce myself that way. For what I am, in particular to today, much more importantly, is the father of a high school student, a middle school student, and a first grader in Georgia's public schools. And on behalf of the 180 public school systems that serve 95% of the K through 12 students in this state, I want to thank you for taking time to hear what those of us that are in the field have to say about a vision for public education. You know, there's advantages and disadvantages to living next door to Governor Deal. One of them is he's close enough that he'll just tell me what he's thinking. And one of the questions he asked me in the past year was, just what is it that superintendents do? And I don't think he was saying that in as much of an interesting fashion as he was under the assumption that we probably didn't do much. So I hearken back probably 12 years ago when I was the superintendent of the Social Circle City School District, and to this day, I know you never have bad days up here in Atlanta. But if I'm having a bad day, my secretaries know where they can find me, and it'll be in a kindergarten classroom. Because it is in those kindergarten classrooms, rolling around on the floor and reading to those 5-year-olds, getting them all jacked up and then leaving, that I remember the profound nature, I remember the profound nature of what it is that we've been charged with in terms of the future of our boys and girls. And this little fella came up to me one time after I'd gotten them all jacked up in Social Circle, and he tugged on my pant leg, and he said, "Mr. Schofield." And I love the South for a number of reasons, but one of them is you don't have to remember people's names. You can call them Bubba, or you can call them Sweetheart, or you can call them Big Boy. And I said, what do you want there, Bubba? And he said, "I've decided what I'm going to do when I grow up." And I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I'm going to be a superintendent." Now, I was quite moved. I was thinking, I've really impacted this young man's life, and I should have left it at that. But I didn't. I said, "And what is it that you think a superintendent does?" And he says, "Well, from what I see, I can do what you do." And I pushed him a little further. I said, "And what is it that I do?" He said, "Looks to me like you just walk around and talk to people." So for those of you that are wondering what a superintendent does, I'd like to think there's a little more to it than that, but we do walk around and talk to people. But the other group that has been part of the visioning project, and much like yourselves, I believe remains a bastion of what true Jacksonian democracy looks like, is local school board members. Those people who are constitutionally charged by the state of Georgia to be in charge of and to look over public education for our boys and girls in this state. And it's been an exciting project. You know, I came from a dairy farm background, and I'm performance-based. How much milk was in that tank every morning? And I've almost gotten out of education twice in the past 25 years because at times we will adopt what I call an entitlement mentality. And I always have challenged those of us that work in public schools that we need to move towards a performance mentality. One of the silver linings of this economic crisis that we're in the midst of is I think we stand at the best opportunity I've seen in 25 years to actually get there in public education. You know, I remember as a boy, I was interested in politics, strangely enough, and I remember watching the debates of Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale. And although I was a Goldwater conservative and was a supporter of Ronald Reagan, I thought Walter Mondale said the most profound statement in all of those debates when he said, "Not until we as a nation get to the point where our 16 and 17-year-old children sit at the dinner table, look into the eyes of mom, dad, auntie, grandmother, and say, 'I want to be a public school teacher.'" He said, "Not till we get to that point as a culture will we arrive." And I think it could never be more profound and more true than in the year 2011. You know, it was the Georgia School Boards Association and the Superintendents Association that decided in June of '09, as Herb said, and I've been very critical over the years, that we spend too much time being again and not enough time being for. We need to quit being reactive, we need to quit being critical, and we need to spend some time reflecting. And as Sis said, we've spent 15,000 hours reflecting and getting the pulse of this state and articulate what it is that we're for, a vision for public education in Georgia. By the way, each of you, before you leave today, and I hope you'll give it to your colleagues, will get a 7-page executive summary of the vision work over that June 9 till December 10. And it's 160 pages, and I know you have nothing to read, but the executive summary is 7 pages. And I think you'll find in the guiding principles and in the 40 or so recommendations that you'll find a lot that will be of interest to you. That would be wonderful. And I think we can assume that's done. It also can be downloaded onto a Kindle or an e-reader free through Amazon. Why did we undertake this work? To build trust and support for education through meaningful engagement of communities with their schools. We wanted to create and for once be part of a single vision for public education to change education and culture in our state. We want to provide rewarding educational experiences for all of our children and make sure, as Governor Deal often says, that they are life, work, and college ready. We want to reduce the dropout rate. We want to make learning more rigorous, more relevant, and more real for our students. We want to take these digital natives, these digital learners, and make sure they have access to cutting-edge technologies for learning and assessment, and we want to be more responsive to individual student needs. I've said for ages my two favorite groups of teachers are special education teachers and gifted teachers, teachers of the gifted, because they understand that we don't teach classes, we teach individual students. And in this day and age, in 2011, with the technologies at our fingertips, I believe Georgia can lead the nation in teaching individual students. What was our purpose? Our purpose was to prepare high school students again to be life, college, and work ready. Our goals and our outcomes were academic knowledge and skills, the ability to critically think and problem solve, and appreciation for the arts and literature, preparation for skilled employment, the development of social skills and a work ethic, citizenship and community responsibility, and physical and emotional health. Who was on this team? The team was comprised of 15 superintendents from across the state, 15 locally elected Board of Education members, and those individuals represented 25 school districts and 25% of the student population in Georgia. We've identified 7 educational system components that need to be addressed, that are addressed in this new vision for public education, and the presenters who follow me this afternoon are going to give you a brief overview of those 7 areas. In addition to the 30 planning team members, we had 10 facilitators, 30 research assistants from our various universities and colleges across the state. We held 9 community conversations around the state, and we had 4 incredibly enriching conversations with high school students, asking them the question, what would it look like if your school experience were more real, more relevant, and did a better job of preparing you for your future? Too often we forget to ask the children who are being acted upon. We are now in the dissemination stage of this work, and we've held 15 sessions with superintendents and local Board of Education members spreading the word and seeking support for the recommendations and the feedback that you'll see in the vision product. We ask that you, the body that has the primary responsibility for policy and public education in our state, please give serious consideration to our work. I support the historical mission of the Common School. And again, because a number of arrows are starting to point in the same direction, I believe we stand at a rare opportunity in the state of Georgia and in this nation to see a renaissance, to see innovation, to see children that actually can connect the dots between what we're asking them to do in our public schools and what they want to do with the rest of our lives. Given the opportunity, given the proper support, given your backing, I'm convinced that public schools in this state can do all that is possible to serve the needs of our boys and girls. Thank you for your time today.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Valerie Wilson. I'm a member of the City Schools of Decatur's Board of Education. It was my honor to serve as a member of the planning team and to work along with the early learning component of the vision for the public education in the state of Georgia. A personal story. My child was 3 years old when he went to a public school for the City Schools of Decatur at a program called Kinderheim. And it was a pre-K program that we were putting in place in the City Schools of Decatur to help children. Now, he had a father who went to work every day at Georgia State University as an assistant basketball coach, and a mom who went to work every day at Fulton County government as the director of a department. But he was a child that went home, that stayed at home with a wonderful lady who kept him in a wonderful home But what she had to provide to him, to me, wasn't helping him to grow. Even though he had two educated parents who worked with him every day that we came home. But I tell you what happened when he went to that early learning program. He came home and he could talk to me about things that I, who had a mother as an educator and was taken to school every day with her sometimes, and I didn't know about those things until I was in school in the first grade. And my 3-year-old child could talk to me about things that you wouldn't imagine children could talk about. That's what early learning did for him. It began to stimulate him. And when I think about the children across the state of Georgia who don't have that opportunity today, that really concerns me, and which is why I was passionate about the City Schools of Decatur opening our first early childhood learning center a few years ago in the city of Decatur. Now, our team was to focus on early learning and the later success that it would have for children in K-12. I want to read to you a statement that is the most profound statement that we have dealt with, and you should know that the members of the planning team and the visioning committee, one of the things that we all agreed on across the board, is the earlier you can affect a child's learning, the better. And when we say that, we don't mean just 4 years old. We mean 0 to 5 years old. We mean at 0. And people go, 0? What could you do at 0? Children start learning from the time they leave the womb. And they learn at a rate and a speed that you would never believe. But let me just read this statement for you. And it was a statement that was made in 2000 by the National Research Council. It said, the first 5 years of life are critical to a child's lifelong development. Young children's earliest experiences and environments set the stage for future development and success in school and in life. Early experiences actually influence brain development, establishing neural connections that provide for the foundation for language, reasoning, problem solving, social skills, behavior, and emotional health. To that end, children will not be able to enter school ready to be successful unless families, school districts, communities provide environments and experiences that support physical, social, emotional, language, and cognitive development of infants, toddlers, and preschool. One of the most profound members to me, one of the members that left the biggest impact on me from our team was a preschool teacher. And what she said to me is that when those little kids come to me and they can't hold a pencil in their hands because they have not had the people working with them to help them to hold a pencil. When they come and I cannot work with them because they are acting out, because their emotional needs haven't been dealt with. When they come to her at 3 years old, it's almost too late. They're almost already behind at 4 years old. And she has to spend so much time trying to get them ready to teach them the content that she's supposed to be teaching them in pre-K, which speaks to me of the need. And she was very passionate. She was probably one of the most passionate members of our committee. That comes from the horse's mouth. We always say in this community, teachers are the ones that we should be listening to because they are the closest to our children. We had a teacher on our committee who was telling us this. And that was worth listening to, and I hope that it is worth you listening to. The key partners in ensuring the success of students are families, school districts, and communities. And these entities must work together to make sure that we get better results for our children. I would like to say that you are members of community at the state. You are the ones that set the policies that help to guide us as we are moving forward to create strategies that will work together, where we bring together across the board all of the resources in the state of Georgia to make sure that our children are prepared and ready for school when they get there. Decatur's Early Childhood Learning Facility is one of those examples, if you would, of a collaborative. It is the school system working with families, working with the communities, and working with state partners to bring together early learning, where we bring in children at 0 years old and we have them there until they are ready to go into kindergarten. We are measuring the impacts. We are looking at what is happening. And for the last 5 years, what we have been doing is following those children and their success. And I am here to tell you today that it makes a difference. We are doing the longitudinal studies to make sure that as we are watching these children progress, that they are doing better. And I could not tell you, and that is particularly important to me, because in City Schools of Decatur, 75% of the funding that goes to public education comes from the taxpayers' dollars in the city of Decatur. And we have to be able to speak to them and to tell them that what we are doing with their dollars is working, just as you have to be able to say what you are doing with the dollars here are working. And we're able to say that to them. In the end, public policy should seek to address those opportunities to provide for all children and their families with a range of services and supports that promotes children's well-being. I want to read to you the guiding principles that we worked with under the early learning component, because I think that they're important for you to hear. Responsibility for children's readiness lies not with the children, but with the adults who care for them and the systems that support them. Child development occurs across equally important and interrelated domains: physical well-being and motor development, social and emotional development, approaches to learning, language development, and cognition and general knowledge. The family plays the most important role in a young child's life. And finally, the first 5 years of life are a critical developmental period for all children. The other area that I was asked to talk about today had to do with culture, climate, and organizational efficacy. And the focus of this group was to look at schools and school districts and the culture and climate within them. Individuals associated with school and educational organizations should be very intentional about creating cultures and climates that make the education experience more exciting, satisfying, enriching for everyone involved. That's important, because if you don't engage students when they come in, if they don't see what's in it for them, if they don't get it, if they don't connect, we are not going to be able to move them. They are passionate individuals, and we don't give them enough credit to understand that they recognize when you are truly, truly not interested in them. So we have to create climates and cultures that encourages them to come to the table. Student achievement will be improved when time is spent developing safe, orderly, supportive learning environments. The lack of order and consistency in schools with no established routines or procedures is frustrating to staff and students. So one of the areas that we looked at was to make sure that there were guidelines, standards, procedures in place across the board that were consistent to make sure that the environment was safe. They're telling me 1 minute, I talk a lot. And the final thing is engaging parents, making sure that parents feel involved and a part of making sure that their children are receiving the best for them. It is important that we do that and that they feel a part of the environment. Thank you so much.
But before you sit down,
I have a question.
Before you sit down, one thing you need to know, for the first time I think that I'm familiar with it, we've got a longitudinal data system we've now got from going forward at this point, finally. And one of the things in the budget this year, in fact, I heard it testified to yesterday from right from the start, the 4-year-old, the pre-K program, they're actually going to implement a longitudinal data system for the 4-year-olds. We've never had that, and the problem is as we deal with pre-K, and Polly, I know you're in the room somewhere. I saw you floating around, McKinney from Voices for Children, yeah, back there. We've always had to use national data when we tried to talk about the benefits of pre-K. In the next 4 or 5 years, if we do this right, and we're doing it with 4-year-olds, granted, we're going to be able to actually show people and say why this makes a difference. Okay, so I wanted you to know that no, we're not down to 3rd grade, we're not down to 3 or 2 or 1 or 0, but we are making some progress. I just want you to know we are doing something.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we're glad Wanda's here today, too. Wanda, we're glad you're here. Barsh with State Board, and she knows how important this is to us, and we appreciate what y'all are doing to help with that, too, so that you know how critical that is to keep that all together. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, committee members, first of all, we again want to say thank you for the opportunity to present to you this afternoon. My name is Buster Evans. I'm in my 4th year as superintendent of the Forsyth County Schools, but also served as superintendent for 11 years of the Bleckley County School System. And one of the things that I have recognized over the years is the true success of a great school system is great school board members. I'm delighted on one hand, that you have among you as colleagues one of the greatest school board members that I've had an opportunity to work with, Representative Mike Dudgeon. I can rest assured that there'll be few pieces of legislation that Mr. Dudgeon, that Representative Dudgeon, will vote on that he's not read and read and read and perhaps even badgered someone about. But we are delighted that he is serving because we know that he will take education seriously with the idea of improving education. John Maxwell said that where there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. Another one of my favorite motivational speakers says there's 3 kinds of people. This could have been a Representative Brooks Coleman. Those people who make things happen, those people who watch things happen, and those people who wonder what happened. This is our opportunity to make things happen for the betterment of school children all across Georgia. As I've said, I've served in 2 different school districts, small district, large district. I've never met a school administrator or a school superintendent or a school board member who wanted their school not to do better than it did the year before or better than their neighbors across the county line. We are not satisfied with the status quo, but we also recognize that the true work of what takes place, I really believe, are the things that I'm going to talk to you about today as it results to teaching and learning resources, and that human organizational capital. Archimedes stated that give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I'll move the world. Key, I believe, to us moving the world of education is leveraging the wonderful tool of our human assets with the technologies that we have at our hands today, as well as the technologies of the future. Think for just a moment what technology is. Somebody once said that technology really is an extension of the human mind and the human body. The metaphor goes like this: a hammer is purely an extension of the hand, and a screwdriver is an extension of the fingers. But in neither place do those tools replace the hand. I want to rest assured that we understand that key to delivering quality education programs are the thousands of teachers who will be able to utilize technology as the leverage to help children have educational opportunities. So with that, let me talk really quickly about some of the things that we believe are recommendations. First of all, we believe a challenging curriculum is critical. All the research continues to support if you want to have high SAT scores, you need to have a challenging curriculum. We believe Georgia's on track for that. We also believe that we need to come together to develop comprehensive and balanced assessment systems where we know where students are any day of the week in terms of their academic performance. And yes, Mr. Chairman, we believe that longitudinal data system is going to help all systems in Georgia be able to do this. We also believe that we must provide a combination of classroom and virtual learning opportunities. Let me share with you real quickly a story that comes from Johns Creek Elementary School about students bringing their technology to school. Third grade teacher, Ashley Howington, with 23 students in her classroom just the other day, was having a bring your own technology activity with her students. Out of those 23 students, 18 students brought some form of device, from iPad to Nintendo DS, and things that you and I probably don't even know about. But those third grade students were working with each other and collaborating with each other, and 3 of the little girls had brought Nintendo DSIs. And as they were communicating with each other, the teacher doing the typical good thing that a third grade teacher would do, expressing how delighted she was at the knowledge of these students, and asked the little girl, "Honey, how do you know how to do this?" And she looked up at her teacher proudly and said, "My daddy works for Sprint." The truth of what I'm telling you is, if we're going to expand, I recently read, just this morning, it was in my box, thought it was timely, article from Scholastic Administrators, school day needs to be longer. I'd tell you the school year needs to be longer, but the truth of the matter is you and I both know it's not going to be with traditional brick and mortar. We can expand the school day. we can expand the school year, and we can expand the access to content by leveraging technology. I could tell you about Angel Connection. Angel is our learning management system in Forsyth County Schools. I can tell you that 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't know who these people are, but they're in a learning management system. Our teachers are in sleep, and you can rest assured that I am. The students may be using our learning management system. We need to be leveraging these opportunities. Let me move quickly to the final area that I'm to talk about, and that's our human organizational capital. They say the best way to improve any organization is to improve the quality of people who make up that organization. 2 ways to do that: hire good people, train good people. And then also for educational leaders is to support them. But we recognize that we must recruit talented candidates to teacher preparation programs. Right now, it's probably not about quantity of candidates, but it may be, well, about the disparate quality of candidates for all content areas, for all geographic areas of Georgia. We also believe that improving teacher preparation programs to expand beyond the content, but to even go into such things as teacher preparation. Give you a couple of good examples. The University of Georgia and Georgia Polytechnic Institute both have engineering programs and mathematics programs where a college student can get a degree in engineering or mathematics or science. But in addition to those degrees in content related, they can also get their teacher credentials. They have a choice then when they graduate. Do I want to serve perhaps as a teacher and I have that option, or do I want to serve? Perhaps that might be one of the reasons that we ask the question, is this a time that we look at differential compensation in the future for educators that's truly performance-based? We could go on and on about the recommendations that we have, but the bottom line that we believe that teaching and learning resources, and human organizational capital are the 3 areas that are fundamental to the educational process. We believe that leveraging the 21st century tools of today and tomorrow will help us to create a greater access to content and expand learning opportunities for students. Thank you for your time, attention, and your support.
Good afternoon. I am Diane Sandifer, and I've served in public education roles at the local, state, and national levels, starting with Harris County Schools locally, where I live in Pine Mountain, and then roles in GSBA and NSBA. But more important than all of this, I'm a product of Georgia's public education system. I began my learning in Fulton County Schools, then spent 8 years in Decatur County Schools in Bainbridge, and then my last 3 years of high school up in Habersham County, where I graduated in 1980. My husband is a product of Atlanta Public Schools, and our 2 sons attended Marietta City Schools before we moved to Harris County, where they both graduated. So in sum, I live and breathe public education, and it has truly been my life's passion. The 2 areas that I want to share with you very quickly are the areas of governance, leadership, and accountability, and the area of financial resources. So first, let's look at governance, leadership, and accountability. We do have many recommendations coming out of the vision team, but they include such highlights as appointment of our state school superintendent, election of both state and local Board of Education members on a nonpartisan basis, examination of our current state agencies, which have some responsibility for K through 12 education for the purpose of reducing the number of agencies and increasing effectiveness and efficiency. We want to explore all options to ensure an equitable and excellent educational opportunity for all students, regardless of where they do live. Develop state and local accountability systems that are based on clearly established educational goals. As we take a quick minute to focus on financial resources, the purpose of this component is to recommend strategies which will provide adequate financial resources to support the initiatives that we've outlined in our vision for public education. One of the guiding principles for the financial resources piece states that our citizens' commitment to support taxation for public schools is enhanced when public education is seen as an essential factor in economic development, in a democratic society, and in a quality of life. We do recommend continued work on tax reform. A fair, balanced, and equitable tax structure must be devised to generate revenue for adequate education funding. And we recommend the providing of state and local funds for a comprehensive data system. We also recommend local flexibility for spending, coupled with methods of evaluating success. When state interventions are needed, we recommend that those be positive. We have got to get funding right. In that light, we are pleased that a commission has been created and that legislation is being put in place through House Bill 192, but we have to ensure that this formula, once it's developed, is fully funded. We can't keep balancing our budget by making cuts to education. We simply can't. A partnership between state and local leaders is paramount in this shared responsibility of funding. Valerie shared about the importance of early learning in years 0 to 5. We recommend that there be an implementation of a mechanism so that we can provide sustainable financial support for our early learning programs with services for all children. You have at the state level the authority to make these decisions that will result in our vision becoming a reality. 29 of the 45 recommendations can be implemented at the local level, but we know that you have a primary responsibility for providing the resources and structures to allow all of Georgia's children to receive an equitable and excellent educational experience. Our goal is a single vision and a single voice for public education. We know that good governance, effective leadership and teaching, and adequate financial resources are all essential elements in reaching these goals that we've outlined. So we have a call to action before us. We all need to learn about and discuss and act on Georgia's vision for public education. The Georgia School Boards Association, the Georgia School Superintendents Association, our State Board of Education, and you, our legislators, we have to be on the same page with the same vision and the same action plan. And again, we have to act now. This concludes our presentation. Fran?
Very good. I'm going to let open it up for questions from the committee, so they can ask any of you to come up they'd like. So does anyone have a question or a comment they'd like to make from the committee? We appreciate this. What a great presentation. All right. See the lights come on. Anything you want to say? I see you dying to say something, Mr. Former board member, Mr. Dudden. You want to say something? What's your number? All right.
I'm on.
You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the presentation, and thanks for the shout-out from Dr. Evans there. I appreciate that. You talked to a couple, I don't remember which one, talked about challenging curriculum, and I'd like to know a little bit more about that, and also I like the vision around moving away from bricks and mortars, and I think that Dr. Evans talked about that. I think that's very important, and that's something I think here at the state level we can encourage, is moving towards a more mixed model from the traditional, more expensive brick and mortar traditional classroom to a more virtual thing. But I really think it's important what was offered and what was said is that virtual is still an extension of a really good teacher somewhere, and we always have to not forget that. There's no magic in the computer unless the teacher puts that magic in there. But I really like that, and I think that's 10 years from now when we're sitting here, or whoever's sitting here in this room talking about education, my prediction is that's where we're going to be, with a more of a mixed model with more virtual stuff.
Anyone else have a comment or question? We're not going to delay, but excellent presentation, and I think that I love that last statement that you made, the fact that this is not just Georgia School Board, superintendents, legislators, all of us working together. And I really do. I feel for the first time in a long time, Fran and I've talked about it, that I feel that really pulling together, and I think we have an opportunity to really pull some things out. And I think with what seems to be going on, and I'd like for one of you to comment a little bit on when we talk about local control. I may put you, Buster, or you, or Will, one of the spot, or where are my other superintendents? Let me see my other superintendents. Raise your hand. I'd like for y'all, when you hear local control, tell us what you mean, because I mean, sometimes we have trouble understanding that. Who wants to answer that?
But we don't mean Sunday sales of liquor.
However, if you feel like you need to do that on Saturday, that's okay.
First and foremost, I want to emphasize when somebody asks for local control, first of all, what we need to have is accountability and responsibility. We are never willing to grant our own children control of their own lives and destiny until they demonstrate that they're responsible, that they're doing the absolute. So the first thing that I think all educators in Georgia must do, and we can do as a part of this project, is to hold ourselves accountable at a higher standard. I will speak to that from the Forsyth County Schools is one of 2 districts in the state who is an I-squared district. There are other districts, Gwinnett County being the other one. There are other districts that are charter districts, and those good too. But all of us have agreed to hold ourselves not to the same level of accountability as No Child Left Behind, but to an even higher level in our case where we not just have students meet expectations, but exceed expectations. That is a commitment toward a higher level of accountability. So I think when we're able to demonstrate that, we can do that. Now, I do think that me as a superintendent certainly should be held accountable. I think school board members have demonstrated a real willingness. I think our coming together as a part of this process demonstrate that yes, we're willing to take higher levels of accountability. We're willing to be part of the solution and no longer being perceived as part of the problem. But local control, certainly school board members, I think have that opportunity to make decisions that reflect the level of interest, the level of desire of their community. But once again, having the support of the state as well as federal government for education help us frame the parameters for what that control is permissible.
Stay there, Buster. Fran has a question for you.
I have a question for you. You know, we come down here in January and we leave in April, hopefully. At least now that's the game plan. And each and every year I watch people come down. I watch several governors come through here at this point in time. Everybody has their vision for excellence in education, and they're going to be the education governor and so on and so forth. I guess my question to you would be, and I see Herb a good bit down here, and Sis Henry, of course. You've come up with these recommendations. You've come up with these thoughts. You spent a lot of time. I think I've attended at least 1 or 2 of your meetings out there. And it would be very helpful, because we do things in a piecemeal basis down there, which you know, because you have to live with the results of what we do. And I guess my question to this is, when we look at, digest what you've given us, and we look at this thing, it would be very helpful for us here that are not educators to actually get, you know, ideas for the actual legislation, if you will, from people that are on the ground of what you need to make the job work, to make it work. And, you know, we can sit here all day and we can pontificate and we can have our legislative council draft this, that, and the other, but then you got to live with it. And I don't think that in 12 years, 13 now, I don't think I've ever had somebody from the local school board or superintendents or anybody that's on the ground day in and day out ever come and say, okay, this is what we think we need to do in this state legislatively wise. This could be really help us, because at the end of the day, and I've said this before, we're not out to create Rhodes Scholars. We're out to create productive citizens. And we've spent a lot of time the last couple of years, Randy Nix and others and people that participate in the study committee spent a lot of time recently on trying to give people options to keep these kids in school, to get them engaged, is what you talked about there, so they're not bored, that we can get them out of middle school and get them to high school. And I guess that would be the one thing I would say, and I've not seen the finished product. But when we go forward from here, and next year when we come back, okay, here's what we thought, and here's some ideas of, what the legislation would have to be to where you can help us. Because I think you said 29 of the recommendations could be implemented locally, and you need help in the other areas from us, so we can all get on the same page. But I think personally, and Herb knows this particularly, and just not Herb, Angela knows this too, yeah, you are coming forward with positive. It's not that we're against this or we're against that. Because we do, all of us up here, we know there's 1.7 million kids out here. And every school can't be a charter school, and everything can't be a virtual school. We got 1.7 million kids. And we really need to hear more from you all on the ground, because your presentations were very, very good, all of you. And we appreciate you coming down and doing this very, very much. But come back to us through your representatives, and bring us the things where we can help you.
Mr. Chairman, I think both of your questions dovetail together so beautifully. Mr. Chairman, you asked about local control. You asked about what specifically can we do. I think the two are different sides of the same question. There was a time in this country when moms and dads got together, pitched a little money in a hat, hired somebody they called a teacher, and were very specific at the local level about what they wanted to be taught to their children. That's what we mean by local control. In Hall County, we are continuing to develop niche schools, and we're challenging our teachers and our parents to get together and tell us what a 21st century education looks like, and we see our job at the administrative level to support those dreams. And it's amazing what happens when you have engaged parents, engaged students, and engaged teachers that believe that they're doing what they think is best for their local children. So set some goals, set them high, and by the way, those don't have a whole lot to do with CRCT scores. They have to do with 25-year-olds that aren't living in their parents' basement and that are productive citizens. And after we set some realistic goals for making meaningful and productive citizens, hold us accountable at the local level for making that happen, but give us great flexibility in what that looks like.
We'll stay up there a minute. I have a senator. You have a question. What?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a question and a comment. First off, outstanding presentations. Virtual schools are where we're going. I think we all know that. It's not bleeding edge anymore. It's today's technology. And we've got to find a way to get these kids through school. And if they need to work part of the day, then they can go to school online at whatever time of day it makes sense. And we can't wait another 5 years or another 10 years to get there. We've got to do it now. We've got to find a way to keep those kids interested and excited. And I think Chairman Miller said it best. You have to tell us what you need now, because we have to invest a nickel to save a dollar. Because we know what happens when these kids don't graduate from high school. It's pay me now or pay me forever later. And if we can't appeal to people's most basic human emotions, that every child deserves to be whatever God intended them to be, then let's hit them right in their wallet. Thank you. God bless you for helping out.
You know, Senator, I think one thing. Yes, okay.
Could I just say that to your question, Senator Millar, about what we are going to do next? It's important that you know of the 1.7 million children that you're talking about in the state of Georgia, 95% of those kids go to public school systems. Right. So that's real important that we recognize that. You should also know that 122 school systems across this state have been a part, or have been this vision has been presented to them, and we have held meetings of which they have attended, and they are buying onto this. So on March 29th, we will come together, the Georgia School Boards Association and the Georgia School Superintendents Association will come together, and we will work on our next steps. And a part of that is coming back to you with recommendations around policy that will help us to move this forward.
And you're also, I think, at the local level, once you get past that, then you're going to start having meetings with your various parent groups out there.
Exactly.
It's sort of like the longitudinal data system.
Exactly.
It started from the state, it went to the local system, to the, well, they said we're going to have the principals teach. I said, no, you're not. Somebody teach can really teach this thing so that people know how to use the system, and then as the teachers understand it, then they can explain to the parents.
There are conversations across the state at school board meetings, in neighborhood, in communities about this.
Okay, thank you.
You know, one thing, too, I think is important. It was referred to this 192. House Bill 192, we're going to be doing the QB study. And I think the House and Senate needs to realize this can be the most critical piece that we've ever had, because Fran and our committee, the governor's committee, to involve, for the first time, I think, a lot of educators, a lot of teachers, parents, and people doing it. And I think this is when we answer a lot of those questions, decide what legislation needs to be. And as you've said to me, many of you, it's not more legislation necessarily we need. Maybe it's the absence of some legislation that we need. And that's why I asked that question about local control and flexibility we need. So maybe that's it. We don't maybe need the IE squared or chartered, but maybe we need to be trusted a little bit more. So I have another. Anybody else have a question? Those are good questions. Anybody else like to ask this group anything? Wanda, I'm going to put you on the spot, because I think to make this thing really work, I don't know who I have from the state board. I know I have you here with you. Any more state board members, Wanda, here? Or anybody from the State Department in here? Would you like to make a comment? Because, Wanda, I think it's critical that all of us are in board, legislators on board, the state board. So I'm going to put Wanda on the spot.
Well, you can trust that I'll be truthful. I am very pleased that GSBA and GSSA came together and brought leaders together to talk about the things that we believe are the vision for the future. I believe many of their recommendations are absolutely crucial to our future success. Probably the one politically volatile area is the area of statewide elected state board members. And I won't be here, so this won't be an election that I would even consider, but I do have data on that, and I have worked with state board members from around the country, across the nation, and elected state board members is a very sensitive place to go in terms of the political environment. And one of the strengths, I believe, from the last 8 years, and I can only speak to my experience here in Georgia, is the fact that you had state board members that had no agenda except the success of students and working on that rigorous curriculum which Dr. Evans referred to, and that had that been in some of the environments that I've seen around the country, we would be 5 to 6 years behind in Georgia in that work. So I know that that's not something that's on the table immediately, but I say to you that's something that we need to be very, very cautious about in terms of individuals that are helping make those decisions. And we've always worked closely with GSBA and GSSA and plan to continue to do that, and I believe in many of these recommendations will move us forward. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we got to be out of here because I see the higher ed lining up. But I'm going to take I'm going to have Sissy and Herb. Wait a minute, I want y'all stay. I'm going to have you to come up. But you want to say something, Bob? Come on. You have something you want to say, Bob? All right. I would, to end up, we got to be out, but I'd like to ask if Sissy and Herb would come forward, both of them. I don't know how they want to end this, but we sure do appreciate them. So y'all come forward and say what you'd like to. Herb will dance and
first of all, just thank you so much for allowing us to come. As we said initially, this has been a 2-year endeavor. We've involved people from all over the state, and we're just honored that you gave us the time.
And since Sis moved in and became the executive director of the Superintendents Association, I'd like to announce my recent appointment as the director of the School Boards Association. Senator, we will get these executive summaries available for every member of the General Assembly, and we'll have them within the next 48 hours.
And we'll see they're on their desk Monday morning, so we'll
have them there. Yes,
you'll have them for us.
All
right, does anyone else have anything they want to say for the good of the Lord before we leave?
Well, I do.
All right, Fran?
We have committee meetings starting at 3:30. In the Senate, because we actually work a full day,
and we'll have to go because they're hearing good bills.
And they're gonna, because it's their bills. That's why they're our best friends now, and they're in 310 in this building. Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.
Y'all take care. Would the House Education Committee stay around for 2 seconds? We have one thing we're going to take up. I think maybe not. Thank you, Fran. I don't see. Does Ann Purcell here? I don't see her, so we're going. All right.